Defend, defend, defend democracy.
Rise, resist, unite against the tyranny.
Good afternoon, mga kasama! We are here to express our highest objection to Roque, to the International Law Commission. We are here in front of the United Nations. On behalf of Anak Bayan, I would like to welcome Roque.
Mabuhay mga kasama at mga kababayan! I am Roque from Anak Bayan, Progressive Youth and Student Organization here in the US and in the Philippines, representing Phil-Am and Filipino Victor. Oh, hi. Okay, cool. Can we have a take two? Hi, I'm Alfie, representing Anak Bayan, a progressive youth and student organization fighting for the future of the Philippines. Most importantly, we're fighting for our future because the future is ours to inherit. I came here with a celebratory speech actually because I thought it was so absurd that the United Nations would actually elect a war criminal on the International Law Commission. So I don't really come with something prepared because we don't know the results of the election. But I want to stand here and congratulate everyone here today for coming out because we stand together as a symbol of power that we can fight a war criminal, that we can expose the lies of the Duterte regime. We saw it loud and clear at Aretsky's Patroon with his fancy dinner costing nearly $1 million, but for that, we'll never know because he refuses to answer that. And for his silence is loud and clear that he cannot speak for the Filipino people. He cannot speak as a spokesperson for the Filipino people. He can only speak as a representative of fascism, as a lapdog, as a puppy, as a parrot, as a mindless minion for Rodrigo Duterte's murderous regime. So, let me hear some noise from you all, because we are here to show the power of the Philippine people against the dictatorship. We are here to bring down the rocket system.
Woo!
Roque is incompetent as a representative of the Filipino people. Roque is incompetent as he is a lawyer for Jennifer Lawrence's family. What did he do to Jennifer Lawrence's family? He set Joseph Scott Pemberton free. What kind of a lawyer is he? Except a lawyer who's on the side of evil. How can we expect him to represent international humanitarian law, make recommendations to international law? Now I actually read the ILC report for 2021, and I know that one of the pertinent points on that report is making recommendations for climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic, the crisis that's happening in this world right now. How can we expect Roque to make genuine contributions to the fight against climate change when Duterte just recently reopened the possibility of open pit mining in the Philippines?
Boo boo!
How do we expect Roque to faithfully uphold international law when his boss, a puppet of U.S. imperialism, is displacing indigenous people, Aitas, Lumas, left and right, and putting profits above people, so that with every mine, with every tree that's cut down, we see more and more Filipinos die because every year because of typhoons, because of floodings, and because of landslides? How can we elect this person to the United Nations International Law Commission? How can we expect him to make meaningful recommendations to fighting COVID-19 when we see the failure of the Duterte regime with these endless lockdowns that have continued for years, 2 years? The Philippines has the longest lockdown in the world. How can we expect him to have a science-based approach when he is a puppet of the Philippine military and U.S. imperialism, of course? So we stand here to continue to pressure the United Nations to reject Roque's nomination to the International Law Commission. We stand here because we believe that the UN knows what is right. And if Roque is elected to the ILC, we will continue to put the pressure. We will continue to resist fascism. Imperialismo!
Ibagsak!
Feudalismo!
Ibagsak!
Puro kapitalismo!
Ibagsak!
Duterte-bismo!
Babagsak!
Fascista de Estado!
Babagsak!
Fascista de Estado!
Babagsak! Woo!
No justice, no peace.
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
Okay. Alright. No justice, no peace.
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
Thank you so much, Alfie of Bayan, for highlighting the hypocrisies of Harry Roque and his severe incompetency to the UN International Law Commission. Next up, I would like to bring Ed from Malaya, New Jersey, to read a statement of solidarity from the Confederation of Asian Pacific.
Isang mainit na hapon sa inyong lahat, mga kasama!
Woo!
Salamat sa pagkita dito ngayon para i-reject natin si Roque. Asia Pacific lawyer. Asia Pacific lawyer opposed the election of Harry Roque Jr. to the UN International Law Commission. The Confederation of Lawyers in Asia Pacific opposes the candidacy of Harry Roque, the spokesman of Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, to the UN International Law Commission. COLAC stands in solidarity with human rights defenders in the Philippines, particularly with its members in the National Union People's Lawyers who are actively opposing Roque's bid to be elected to the UN body. As a spokesman of President Duterte, Harry Roque Jr. has publicly rationalized extrajudicial killing in the so-called war on drugs, humored his principal especially demand, enable political repression, including weaponization of the law, known against legitimate institutions and Egypt, intimidated members of media, narrated and computed representational physical of first pandemic nature, and condemned international accountability bodies like the International Criminal Court and the UN Human Rights Council, and downplay or justify many official action of dubious legal and constitutional validity, citing the September 14, 2020 press statement of the NUPL. Harry Roque Jr. is instrumental in propping up the regime of President Duterte with all its human rights abuses
extrajudicial killings, disdain for the rule of the law, and contempt against the report of the World Justice Project, the Philippines has slipped further down in the rule of law index to the 102nd spot in this year. Under the Duterte government, its ranking in fundamental rights has also slipped down to the 123rd rank. The inclusion of Harry Roque, Duterte spokesman in the UN International Law Commission, would be a great disturbance to all the victims of human rights violations, including the human rights defenders who were honored. Not the Roque!
No to Roque!
Taki Baka!
Huwag matakot!
Taki Baka!
Huwag matakot! Woo! Salamat kay Diktador Pasista!
Can you go closer when the speakers are because it's hard to hear.
No justice, no peace!
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
No justice, no peace!
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
Thank you so much for that statement of solidarity. Good afternoon. My name is Momo Manala, and I am a member of Gabriela, New York. We are a militant Filipino women's organization fighting for national democracy in the Philippines. And we are here, joined with all of these other organizations and kasamas, to express our objection to Harry Roque's nomination to the United Nations International Law Commission. Back on October 29, we disrupted Roque's lavish dinner reception at a rescue platoon, a move to lobby for his IOC candidacy among UN delegates to secure him into one of the world's highly prestigious organizations for upholding human rights. To this day, Roque has failed to disclose the cost of this extravagant event, refusing to confirm that the price of each attendee is reportedly at $200. And if a list of at least 100 UN delegates were confirmed to appear that night, this amounts to at least $20,000. This is equivalent to 1 million Philippine pesos funded by Filipino taxpayers. And instead of responding to our demands to release the receipts of this event, he has resorted to labeling Gabriela USA and Bayan USA as militant groups, has spread lies about us punching the elderly and refusing to pay for our meals and drinks, and has even criticized the media for siding with us in exposing his severe incompetency to the International Law Commission. He has purposely omitted the fact that we were violently manhandled, some of us even strangled and forcibly pushed down a staircase. But our demands were righteously just and upsetted by his complicity in the endless killings of poor Filipinos, the intrusion of our national sovereignty, and the passing of the anti-terrorism law and ongoing attacks against human rights defenders. And his downplaying of the Philippines' investigation by the International Criminal Court for its crimes against humanity. We have not only been terror-tagged, but have been berated by the National Task Force to Advocate for Communist Armed Conflict for our supposed lack of knowledge of the true conditions of the Filipino people. But we are the ones who regularly go and immerse ourselves in the communities to learn about the conditions of the people. The NTF-LCAP resorts to gaslighting and belittling PhilM activists, but they are only distracting from the truth that they are the real terrorists of the people. And we will continue to struggle against the Duterte regimes to attempt to conceal its human rights violations and abuses against the Filipino people in the face of international condemnation. The movement for human rights in the Philippines is under attack from state forces. It is not a crime to uphold the interests of the people. It is not terrorism to advocate for the most oppressed among us. So let us turn our grief and rage into courage and struggle against state tyranny and impunity. Join us in calling for justice for all Filipino people who have suffered enough under this terrible, rotten
Laban makibaka. Woo!
When women's rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
Sound
What do
from
we
the
do?
plastic is drowning out the
farmers'
speaker.
rights
So
are
there's
under
recommendation
attack,
for you to
what
be
do we
closer to
do?
the speaker
Okay.
so that they
What do
can
we
hear
do?
you.
What do we do? When human rights are under attack, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Makibaka! Wag matakot! Makibaka! Wag matakot! Wag matakot!
So next up, I would like to bring Aaron from ABRU to read a statement of solidarity from the International Association of Democratic Lawyers. This was a statement drafted by 12 lawyers to condemn Harry Roque's nomination to the United International Law Commission. We, the undersigned members of the International Association of Democratic Lawyers and the International Association, respectfully register our firm opposition to the candidacy of Emilia Harry Roque Jr. to the UN International Law Commission. The IATL is a worldwide body of democratic lawyers and jurists from over 90 countries and territories. The UN Consultative Staff IADL has contributed to the development of international law through the years and has helped to establish fundamental concepts of international and domestic law. Its campaigns have led to changes in international humanitarian law, like the universal acceptance of the importance of the right to self-determination and the protection of national human rights in arguments for UN bodies and international courts. It is from this perspective and practice that we consider as inappropriate and unacceptable the candidacy of Philippine lawyer Mr. Roque to an international body mandated to initiate studies and make recommendations for the purpose of encouraging the progressive development of international law and its codification. As official spokesperson of Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, he is currently facing investigation by the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity, extrajudicial killings, and other violations in the so-called drug war. Mr. Roque has urgently defended and justified, even beyond the policy of human rights, justice, due process, and the rule of law. He has also openly undermined international accountability bodies and mechanisms like the ICC, the UN Human Rights Council, and its special mandate, and the UN Office High Commissioner for Human Rights concerning the most egregious human rights violations against his own people. Mr. Roque has even vilified and cast aspersions on his own colleagues in the legal profession, his peers in his very own alma mater, and other Filipino in solidarity with the Philippines in New York, who have interposed bona fide objections to his nomination and candidacy. IATL opposes the nomination of International Law Commission of representatives and governments violating international law, notably the Charter of the United Nations and or the Charter of
Yeah! Woo!
Say it loud, say it clear.
Welcome here.
Say it loud, say it clear.
Fascists are not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear.
Fascists are not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear.
Fascists are not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear. Roque is not welcome here. Say it loud, say it clear.
Roque is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear.
Roque is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear.
Roque is not welcome here!
Say it loud, say it clear.
Roque is not welcome here!
Defend, defend, defend democracy.
Rise, resist, unite against the fascist tyranny!
Defend, defend, defend democracy.
Rise against the fascist tyranny!
Alright, mga kasama, we just got a report that Harry Roque has met him, has not gotten his position into the International Law Commission.
Woo! Hindi na boto?
He had the lowest votes.
Let us not forget that Harry Roque is also vying for a Senate position. So this is not the end, but it's an amazing victory.
Woo!
In the past few weeks, this is definitely justified. So, and also, he got 87 votes, so that's like among the lowest votes he got.
Woo!
Awesome. So, yeah. So next up, I'd like to bring Gabriel.
Harry Roque was rejected. Cancelled.
Hashtag cancel Harry Roque.
Harry Roque. Hashtag Roque.
Rights are under attack. What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
My name is Gabriel Chavez, and I'm an organizer and activist with the New York Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines. We stand in solidarity with the Filipino people, human rights activists, and peace-loving people to say no to Harry Roque and the International Law Commission,
Woo!
and no to the United Nations for even entertaining the nomination of Harry Roque into the International Law Commission.
Woo!
We all know the names and stories of the victims of the atrocities committed by the Duterte regime. We all know names and stories of people who have spoken out against Duterte's atrocities and have been silenced by the Philippine government. We all know the numbers and statistics of how many have died, how many have been forced out of their homes, and how many have been arrested and continue to languish in prison. And yet, this disgusting human being, a lapdog of Duterte in the form of Harry Roque, continues to gaslight us, gaslight the international community, and more horrifically, gaslight the Filipino people that everything is okay, and that we, as human rights activists, are to blame. Don't let his Masters of Law degree, his past work of representing the victims of the Ampatuan massacre, the Malaya Lola, the family of Jennifer Laude, and his tenure of teaching law at UP cloud the reality that for the last several years, Harry Roque has not upheld the rule of law, has not protected the rights of those who have been historically oppressed, and has not served the interests of the people. He has been a mouthpiece for the fascist Duterte regime. Harry Roque has tarnished the function of laws in the Philippines, so we must not allow him to tarnish the laws and human rights promoted in our international community under the United Nations. We must not let Harry tamper with the ICC investigation on Duterte and his drug war. Repeat after me. Say it loud, say it clear. Fascists are not welcome here. Say it loud, say it clear.
Fascists are not welcome here.
Say it loud, say it clear.
Fascists are not welcome here.
Thank you.
Woo!
Maki baka!
Wag matakot!
Wag matakot!
Maki baka!
Maki baka!
Wag matakot!
Wag matakot!
Maki baka!
Maki baka!
Magtakot!
Wag matakot!
Maki baka!
Thank you so much for that speech. I also wanted to just share that we succeeded in sending people
Good afternoon, everyone!
Good afternoon!
So, I think I cannot contain myself, right? With the joy of the news that we just heard. Now that the international community has outrightly and thoroughly rejected the candidacy of Harry Roque in the International Law Commission.
Woo!
This victory is, of course, a victory of the Filipino people. Since we found out about Harry Roque's nomination in the International Law Commission, people all around the world have started organizing and sending letters to their representatives in the United Nations, appealing to their representatives to reject this spokesperson and mouthpiece of the fascist Duterte regime in his candidacy. Just in the past few weeks, we congratulate all the tireless efforts of activists in New York, in New Jersey, and all around the United States who have been tirelessly organizing and sending letters to their representatives to appeal to stand with the Filipino people in rejecting Harry Roque. So let's give ourselves a round of applause. This does not bode well for the Duterte regime. A rejection of Harry Roque is a rejection of Duterte's tyranny. The rejection of Harry Roque is a rejection of a violation of international human rights. A rejection of Harry Roque is a rejection of the Duterte-style politics that continues to trample on the people's human rights and disregard for the law. Kaya mga kasama, it is time for us. This is a moment for us to celebrate the people's victory. But our work does not end here. We must continue to work and organize to totally reject and end the Duterte regime. Now we appeal to the representatives in the permanent missions in the United Nations to support the prosecution of the Duterte regime, support the efforts in the International Criminal Court, and stand with the Filipino people in holding this government accountable.
Woo!
Mga kasama, so from today, we should bring the good news to our community, that today Harry Roque was thoroughly rejected by the United Nations.
Woo!
It was also mentioned, the story of Harry Roque does not end here. He is continuing to pursue, or at least have mentioned to pursue, senatorial seat in Philippine elections. So we must continue our work to educate our communities. Let us remind these fascists, these enablers of the Duterte dictatorship, that history will not be kind to them. That their crimes and complicity to the atrocities of the Duterte administration will not be, that the Filipino people will not slip by, and we will not forget their crimes, and we will ensure that they are held accountable. Makibaka!
Wag matakot!
Makibaka!
Wag matakot!
And our actions in this victory is also a proof that the people united will never be defeated, that our small actions combined together can make a difference. We can make fascists be rejected in the United Nations. And we will continue to do this. We will continue to organize to ensure that not only do they get rejected in the United Nations, but that they also get rejected in the upcoming Philippine elections in 2022.
Woo!
So again, mga kasama, congratulations. Ang tao, ang bayan!
Ngayon ay lumalaban!
Ang tao, ang bayan!
Ngayon ay lumalaban!
No justice, no peace!
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
No justice, no peace!
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
No justice, no peace!
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
Not another nickel, not another dime!
No more money for Duterte's crimes!
Not another nickel, not another dime!
No more money for Duterte's crimes!
Duterte, you can hide. We charge you with
genocide.
Duterte, you can hide.
We charge you with genocide.
Duterte, you can hide.
We charge you with genocide.
Maraming salamat po.
Woo!
Yes, thank you so much, Giselle, and for today is the day of celebration, right? So, awesome. So our last speaker I'd like to introduce from Bayan is Mike.
Woo! It's a good day. Again, if you're just watching, we just heard that Harry Roque was rejected on his nomination for to be part of the ILC.
Mainit at maalab na pasbati ngayong hapon. Good afternoon to everyone who was able to come out today. So many of us are having a hard time to contain ourselves because of this victory, because of this achievement, this blow against the Duterte fascist regime. It is so important for us, like others have mentioned, to celebrate this moment. Because this, like the best mentioned, is an outright rejection at the international sphere, not only of Harry Roque, but of the entire Duterte presidency. We have shown that the Duterte fascist regime has no friends at home in the Philippines or even here abroad. We have shown that the Duterte regime can be hit, that the Duterte regime can indeed bleed, that the Duterte regime is not invincible.
Woo!
We are out here in the rain. Earlier the rain was so much heavier, but all I know every single one of us was thinking about, this is for Kian. This is for Joseph Kumilang. This is for the 30,000 lives that were taken in Duterte's bloody drug war. So many people in the Philippines have been suffering for far too long. It's been going on for decades, but the Duterte regime has only made it so much worse. And Harry Roque, ang kapal na mukha niya, I'm gonna keep saying that, he's so shameless because he is the face of the Duterte regime. As if we didn't have enough with having to listen to Duterte, we had to deal with years of Harry Roque defending the drug war, defending the war against the Moro people in Mindanao. We had to hear Harry Roque defend the extrajudicial killing of peace activists and peace advocates in the Philippines. For us, this rejection of Harry Roque at the International Law Commission is only the beginning. We want Harry Roque to resign from public life in general. Are we going to put this? Are we going to fight for that?
Yes!
We know that these victories are part and parcel of the people's struggle, the struggle of millions of Filipinos who have been disenfranchised, who have been impoverished, who are hungry, not only for food, but hungry for genuine liberation that the Duterte regime can never hope to give us. In the overseas, we are only here. We are the overseas arm of the people's struggle in the Philippines, and we do all that we can. Our action on October 29th, what they say, shamed Harry Roque in front of his potential bosses. That action was just for our friends and family back home, for the tens of millions who are not here, who couldn't face him because of poverty, because of landlessness, because of hunger. This is the best that we can do, and we can even do better. Are we going to continue to fight?
Yes!
Will we make more victories?
Yes!
Harry Roque has been rejected by more than 30,000 people who've sent in their letters, who've sent in their emails. Those 30,000 match the 30,000 killed in Duterte's drug war. But we know there's so many people, so many more people who reject Harry Roque. We see it on social media when thousands upon thousands of people share their voice saying that actually Harry Roque shouldn't just be out of the ILC. He should be behind bars with his master Duterte. especially in the urban poor areas that have been hardest hit by the drug war. We know that people will be clapping. We know that people will be celebrating because this base of fascism has been rejected internationally. I'm finding it a little hard to contain and compose myself because of this victory. But again, this is just the beginning. One thing I'd like to add before closing is that Harry Roque and all the representatives of the Duterte regime and Duterte himself, they're nothing but paper tigers. From afar, they look like real tigers. They look like they're really powerful. But at the end of the day, it's the people's resistance that's really powerful. That's why we say they're nothing, mga tigring papel. They're nothing but paper tigers, easily trampled under the feet of the mass movement. Let's also not forget another victory, this time against another arm of Duterte's propaganda machine. The National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict had their budget slashed by 24 billion pesos. We see this as a victory, but this victory is also just a first step. We want the NTF-LCAC at zero, completely abolished. We want the NTF-LCAC completely wiped out and back in the dustbin of history where they belong, just like Harry Roque. So two main demands moving forward. Harry Roque, resign from public life. NTF-LCAC, abolish. That is what we're going to continue to fight for. Maraming salamat mga kasama. Thanks everyone for being out here. Makibaka!
Wag matakot!
Wag matakot!
Makibaka!
Makibaka!
Wag matakot!
Wag matakot!
Makibaka!
Maraming salamat po.
Woo!
Thank you so much, Harry, for that fiery speech. And also, again, reminding us that the fight is not over. But today we will celebrate because our work paid off. The international community heard our demands, heard our appeals, and they joined us in condemning and rejecting Harry Roque to the UN International Law Commission. So today is a day of celebration, but today is also not the last day we will fight. So thank you again, Mark. Thank you to all of our speakers. And happy... Sorry, I can't say myself.
Woo! If you're just watching,
Happy Roque Rejection Day!
na-reject si Harry Roque sa nomination niya sa International Law Commission. It's a victory.
Makibaka!
Wag matakot!
Huwag matakot!
Makibaka!
Karapatan ng mamamayan!
Ipaglaban!
Ipaglaban!
Karapatan ng mamamayan!
No justice, no peace!
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
No justice, no peace!
Stop the killings in the Philippines!
Defend democracy!
Rise, resist, unite against Duterte's tyranny!
Defend democracy!
Rise, resist, unite against Duterte's tyranny!
Thank you! Woo!